Hey, welcome to another episode of Open Minded Conversations. Again, appreciate y'all for tuning in. I want to give a personal story today. Um, I never, I haven't always been comfortable talking to people, especially up here, talking to my phone, when I press the record button, I kind of choke up, kind of get real tight when I talk. And I've gotten comfortable over time. Like they said, practice makes perfect. But anyways, throughout my life, and I didn't even realize it until I got older. In my 20s and 30s, uh, I have often dealt with social anxiety. I've dealt with social anxiety, especially around certain people. I'm a type of person that can feel certain energies, certain energy in the room. I can feel if somebody, looking at me a certain way. I can feel if somebody is not really feeling me, feeling my presence. You can kind of feel, those energies. And I was the type of person that can feel the energy in the room, to see if I want it or not, you know. And I think that kind of dealt with me. I've dealt with, social anxiety. When you talk to people, you may get shaky. Your voice may change a little bit. Uh, you may sweat a little bit when you are talking to people in a public setting. You may, of course, you're more comfortable talking with family. Even sometimes I've dealt with that, talking with family, social anxiety. And so I've had it very severe at certain times. I'm not going to say I'm perfect. This is a community. And that's the reason I wanted to create this channel, Open Minded Conversations, to have it open to all types of people, to give you motivation, talk about religion, talk about current events. And I just wanted to talk about, the psychological aspect of, having, social anxiety. You feel like in a lot of instances that you're not as good as other people because you have this type of, I wouldn't call it disorder, but I'll say discomfort at times, being around a lot of people. I still deal with it sometimes. Uh, and I feel like it's sometimes my downfall as far as, getting opportunities. You have social anxiety, you're afraid to talk. But over time, I've gotten better with it. Sometimes your determination overpowers those things as far as social anxiety. When you really want something. Uh, Matter of fact, yesterday, I got to talk to, successful. I'm into music, and I got to talk to real successful people in the industry. Of course, I was nervous at the beginning of this discussion, but I said, no, I got to take advantage of this opportunity. I got to get these nerves, this social anxiety out of the way, so I can seize this moment because I may not have this opportunity again to ask questions to someone, where I want to be. These people are where I want to be as far as music is concerned. And so, I got myself together. I said to myself, these people were at, where I'm at, before, they've, had a life before they were successful. They're normal people. They're human. Uh, and also you have to think about, and this kind of got me over, being, having social anxiety. Uh, the thing is that did not help me that people often say is be prepared before, those moments where you're in conversations and stuff like that. It works, it works sometimes, but sometimes things come up in conversations where you're not prepared for the outcome or the response in a conversation. Sometimes the conversation doesn't go the way you planned it in your head before you have the conversation. And I encourage people, when they having social anxiety, just engage in the conversation. Don't feel like Uh, don't feel like you have to think about everything you're about to say. Just engage with that person. Listen to them. Listen more than talk. That's a process of getting better and getting over social anxiety. Just listening to the conversation and talk back and forth. That way, you'll be more comfortable. Sometimes our nervousness get in the way of us listening to people. That has been my problem with social anxiety. In the past and even sometimes now, I get so nervous in the moment talking to certain people that I don't think about what they're saying. I'm just thinking about what I'm going to respond. In response to what they say. And so, and also, be yourself. Everyone in this world has something to offer to the world. Everybody's unique, everybody is different. And so siege that thought, take advantage of that thought that, you have something that somebody else doesn't have. Everybody has something to offer that no other person can offer to the world. And you just got to realize that you're special, that no one is, no one person is better than the other, that you're as good as other people. Because oftentimes I used to get intimidated, by certain things, especially I'll say high school and college. You feel intimidated by other people. you know During that time, people build their personality, build how they are. Are they an extrovert? Are they an introvert? And I oftentimes, it's crazy. The older I get, the more introverted I get. When I was younger, I used to go out a lot, go to the mall with my friends and stuff. Then when I get older, I don't really. It seems like when you get older, the anxiety and stuff gets worse. I don't know what that is, but anyways, yeah, you just be yourself. Know that you're unique, and that's something my wife. Thanks to her, she really helped me out with. You have something to offer, because I used to get very depressed because I had this social anxiety. I felt like I wasn't as good as other people, and so yeah, I thought I'd be very transparent in this video to really help people out as far as social anxiety, because it can cause depression in people. Make them feel like they're not as good as other people. You may feel like, you watching this video, you may feel like you're not as good as other people, but realize you're unique, you're special, you're one of a kind, and you have something to offer to this world. And so, uh, thought I'd talk about this in this video. Again, appreciate y'all for watching Open Minded Conversations. Until next time, peace.